I'm Diane Barrett. I'm Laura Gilford, and we're with the BE Collection. We're here on August 2nd, 2022 with Diane Divelbess.
Yes.
Let me, first of all, I know I have your consent for this. I'd like to have the career, since this is about your career.
Career
Right.
is, I consider a career how I supported myself, how I made my money, etc. I consider my vocation my calling, which is as an artist. So my career is as a teacher, professor on the university level, teacher. I have an MFA, a Master of Fine Arts, which is a performance degree, a 2-year performance degree in painting. And then I took extra work in printmaking at workshops, and studied under people for printmaking. And so that's what I taught: painting, printmaking, drawing, design. But I was at Cal Poly Pomona at a time when we were building the department.
So where were you born?
Okay, I was born in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
And my father was a native Arizonan, and he was from Holbrook, Arizona in the north. And his father was not born in Arizona, but in New Mexico. And but they were an old family. There, my grandfather was initially a rancher, and then when he eventually went bust, he had a wonderful year, and then he put all of his money back into cattle, and that was the beginning of a drought and a big freeze. And so my dad said he could remember riding around shooting the cows because they were starving and they were starting to eat prickly pear, and it was terrible.
Yeah. Was your dad a rancher also, your father?
No, he said he probably would have been, but then his dad became was an elected official. He was a sheriff of Navajo County. I think they were up for like 4-year terms or something. I'm not sure. And then you couldn't succeed yourself more than twice. Mm-hmm. So when he had done that for a couple of times, then he would run for county treasurer.
This is your grandfather?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. So he was a politician.
Sounds like it.
And he was a wonderful man. He was quite gregarious, mm-hmm. and he would go up to anybody and say, "Hi, I'm Dan Divelbess, and I'm so happy to meet you." And somebody would be perfectly startled and say, "Well, who is this?" But that's the way he was. And on the other hand, my father, maybe as a result of that, was very quiet, mm-hmm. Because his dad
didn't have to say anything. His father said it all.
Didn't have to say anything. Right. So my dad was an attorney and was very good at listening. And sometimes mother would say, "Harold, you were just so rude this evening. You just sat there and everybody was talking and you didn't say anything." And he would say, "Well, Mr. So-and-so was saying this and that and the other thing, and Mrs. So-and-so was saying blah, 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 and back and forth. And he would just recount the whole evening because he was listening. But that's what attorneys do. They don't miss much. And so I guess I learned from him. I tried to learn from him how to listen. And otherwise, my mother was the mouthpiece for the family. So again,
were you closer to your father?
Mm-hmm.
Were you closer to your father?
No, I loved them both.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And mother was a live wire, and my dad was so patient. I can remember clinging to his leg as a little kid, saying, "Daddy, Daddy, what can we do?" You know, because it would be hot in the summers and you wanted to go play and you'd be outside. Daddy would be watering some plant or other. And Daddy, what can we do? There's nothing to do. And my dad would say, I know, kid, when I was your age, the days would never end. You know, he was so sympathetic.
Mhm.
And then when he was very active in the Optimist Club in Phoenix, he made sure that he said, I won't support any more of your activities if all they do is build more parks or clubs or activities for little boys.
You said that.
He said, I have $2
I was going to say,
and
right.
there's nothing for them to do. That's the truth. I think people are always afraid that if they don't do something for little boys, they're going to develop little juvenile delinquents, which is probably true.
Which they do
And
anyway, right?
they get so busy building little baseball leagues and everything for boys that they forget that there's a 50% of the population that's waiting for something for them to
You
do.
do. Right.
Yeah. So, and then he was a member of the Phoenix Parks and Recreation.
So all of your growing up time
Uh-huh.
through high school in Arizona?
Uh-huh. So when I graduated from eighth grade, in those days, Phoenix had 4-year high schools, and they didn't have middle schools. You had elementary schools that went up through eighth grade, and then the high school was 9 through 12. But because my primary school only went up to the 6th grade, and then I went to a different school for 7th and 8th, it was sort of like having a middle school experience.
Mhm.
So that uh, when I graduated from 8th grade, my folks gave me a set of golf clubs
Really?
and
Did they play golf?
no, my dad did,
Uh-huh.
and lessons at the Encanto Park um, golf course for that summer, and I just loved it.
Uh-huh.
You know, other kids were
You
getting.
were a girl.
Oh yeah, and I got something that I really love to do. Had I been, whether or not I was a lesbian, my mother was very um, firm that her daughters would be able to support themselves in case something happened to their husbands. And mother had was from Oklahoma, from Ada, Oklahoma, and she had graduated from what I assume is probably something like Eastern Oklahoma State. I mean, I don't know if there's such a college. Anyway, mother went to a college in Ada, and it was like an Ada normal college, which meant there was a teacher's college. But she graduated from that when she was 19.
So she graduated from college at 19?
Yes, she with a BA.
Wow.
And
that's something. Even that she went to college, huh?
Oh yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And
very.
Yeah.
Where did you attend college?
I went to Scripps College in Claremont, California.
When did you first realize your interest in art?
Oh, from the beginning. Mother taught first grade. And so
right.
On our dining room table, when we weren't eating, everything was cleared off, and mother had newspapers on the table. And she always had a big box of Crayolas available and paper. And I had also coloring books. And I had to laugh later on. You know, all the art education books would say, do not let your children color in coloring books because it defeats their sense of making up their own designs or their own stuff. Well, that's nonsense. All a child wants is a piece of paper, and they don't care what's on it, right. and some Crayolas or colored pencils or anything that makes a mark. Right. And you can scribble over what's already been printed. You don't care. And later on, if you decide you want to make something neat, do it. Because then
when you were in college, were you aware of your sexuality, being a lesbian?
well, I'll tell you an interesting thing that happened while I was in high school.
Mhm.
I I was always more attracted to girls than to the boys. But no, this interesting thing that happened to me in high school was, well, I knew that um, I was really attracted to girls, and of course, I was a member of the Girls Athletic Association, and I loved to play tennis and softball and all that. Uh, and one day I was walking home from high school, and I would always, many times I would stop at a corner drugstore, and they had uh, they had racks of pulp paper books, for 25 cents. Remember a 25-cent book,
Some comics.
which would now be what, $8 or something, ridiculous. And anyway, there was a book I saw that was on women, and it talked about the woman as a wife, and the mother, and da da dee dee dee, and all the reproductive, and I was going woo, and I flipped through, and there was a chapter on lesbians.
Really? Whoa.
Woo! And well, I didn't even know I didn't even know there was a name for
Right.
how I was feeling. So I was fascinated, and I didn't want anybody to see me reading it, and I didn't buy the book because I didn't want to take it in the house and have mother reading it or something. And so I just left it there where it was, and every so often I would take another look at that chapter. That when people ban books like they're doing it today, trying to ban books from libraries, what they're doing is denying young people, the opportunity to recognize themselves. Nobody in our family ever said lesbian. I never heard of the name until I saw it in print. But yet I knew that there was a population of kids named, they were called pinks, I think. In some other schools, they were called the greenies or something. But at our high school, it was the pinks, who were the queers. And nobody used the word gay.
No, homo.
Yeah, there's homo. There were slurs. Were slurs that you were aware of, but that wasn't as.
So what did it say in the book about lesbians?
Oh, exactly what they were. They were women who loved women, and they didn't say
sort of a positive.
Oh yeah, they didn't say that they were medically ill. Whereas Greta, she told me that when she first came across lesbians, it was in a book, an old-fashioned medical book, which showed pictures of them, and they were mentally deranged because they were first. It was first considered to be as part of psychopathology.
Stayed that way for a long time too.
Yeah, and so Greta said that her mother. I don't know if Greta told you this story or not, but Greta used to play semi-pro ball. She was excellent. You could see, she was a really powerful athlete. And her mother, in driving her to various games, said, now, probably you'll notice there's some girls that are attracted to each other. And that's there. I think she said at first that they were suffering from some mental illness. They were fine. They were good people, but they were suffering from some mental illness. And then later, the American Psychology group changed their tune and said that there was simply a portion of the population that was that, and they were perfectly healthy. as far as they were not mentally disabled. Mother, we would go shopping for school clothes. This was high school. And particularly like when I was going more towards like junior and senior years. And we loved to shop. There were several stores downtown Phoenix. There was the Boston store and so on, which I think became Macy's, I forget. But Goldwater's was our favorite store. And which would be more like, I'm bad on names now. The famous store that started in Seattle, Nordstrom's.
Nordstrom's, right?
And so we would shop at Goldwater's, and we had a favorite saleswoman who would look out. She would say, "Oh, I have some clothes that I think Diane would like," and stuff. Her name was Mrs. Zink, and she was so nice, and so she recognized that I was uncomfortable in girly clothing.
Did she?
And she never said to Mother, Diane doesn't like girly clothing, but I've got some things that I think Diane would like. That's how she put it, or would look good on her. And she had a number of golf dresses, and I played golf, all through high school, and golfing class. They were more tailored, and they had like the button front, a lot of them, and they were very comfortable and very, very nice. And so I bought a couple, and Mother was kind of unhappy. And what made me think of this was the word mannish.
Right.
Mother said, "Well, I don't want you to look mannish."
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, we got home, and I went across the street. So this was actually earlier in high school years, when we still lived at our old house. I went across the street to show Mrs. Tedford, our neighbor. And Mother said, "Let's go show Mrs. Mildred Tedford and see what she thinks."
Really?
And,
She was really concerned.
And Mildred took one look at me and she said, "Oh, Diane, you look so comfortable."
What a good statement.
She said, and then and she looked at Mother and she said, "Vita, this is really a good style for Diane, and don't you worry about anything. She looks just perfect."
Wow.
It's so nice when you have a neighbor that stands up for you, because you
No.
You feel powerless as a child.
Yeah, well, you are the power of our parents. That's right.
Yeah, right. And so I'll never forget Mildred Tedford for being there when I needed her.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was great. You're right.
You're going back now, when you were in college, did you have lovers or?
No, I decided to really play it safe. I was going to give myself the full opportunity to see if I actually would fall in love with a man. Okay. And so I dated. So, no, but what happened to me was in my senior year, I accepted a proposal from a fellow who was from an old family, Angelino. He was a graduate. He was same year, same class as I, only he was from Pomona College. And we had done a lot of dating, and he was really upper class, old money. And we were upper middle class.
Hardworking.
My mother would say we were middle class because she didn't want us to put on any airs. And but he was from a Catholic family, and our family was not. It's a Methodist family. And Mother was very leery of this right from the first, from all the basic reasons, which is why you can see that many times arranged marriages they actually work out quite well. I've known a lot of people who had arranged marriages. Because I mean, I had a wonderful friend in India who had a totally arranged marriage, which lasted forever.
We
You
know
know,
people like that too.
because they just matched up family, religion, education, the whole 9 yards.
Of
Well,
course, those people also knew about the arrangement. So they had a self-expectation too, I think.
yes, yeah, right,
To maintain that.
yes,
Yeah.
right.
It's
But
part of the culture. Yeah.
the closer we set a wedding date, and my parents made the engagement announcement. It was printed up in both
Wow.
the Phoenix papers and the Los Angeles Times, et cetera, et cetera. The closer I got, I insisted that we not get married until I was out of graduate school.
Had you ever at that point had a relationship with a woman? A sexual relationship?
No, but I had fallen in love
Right. Okay.
at different times.
Was it mutual or was it just your attraction to that other person?
A mutual attraction, but held off. And anyway, the closer that wedding date came up, the sicker I became.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I knew it was wrong. I mean, I just couldn't bear it. Finally, the idea of being somebody's wife and somebody's who would be very much loved and appreciated for her, particularly, he could show off my artistic skills as my wife's hobbies.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
He would have me on his sleeve as somebody he could show off.
Mhm.
Well, that didn't go over well with me at all.
Good.
And so finally, I just called it off.
Mhm.
And I said, here's your ring, you can have it back. He said, no, I don't want it. He was a real gentleman. He said, it's yours. I had it designed for you. And I've been a happy lesbian ever since.
Right. So how long from that time to July 4th when you met Greta?
Well, let's see. That would have been 59, probably 60, 59 into there. Somewhere now. Let's say 59 to 88. That's that's some years,
18 years.
21 years or something.
So were you in other relationships with women before that? Yeah,
Right. That's how you learn.
that's true. We all have to learn.
These are the notches in the barrel. And
Where's the barrel?
I know.
I don't. We have a lot of barrels here, actually.
Yeah. And so, yeah.
Learning is important. Has your sexuality ever been a problem for you in terms of employment or any
I
career?
was very discreet.
Were you? That's
Yeah.
fine.
You know, and I, for example, living and teaching in Southern California, I was careful. I never went to a gay bar
Mhm.
in the Pomona, LA area, except there was one wonderful one in the Hollywood Hills. It was called the Frog Pond.
Oh, was it?
You know that?
What was the name of that? No, there was one. It was, but it was isolated in the Hollywood Hills.
Yeah.
It wasn't the Hunt Club. It was,
No, the Frog Pond.
that wasn't the name of it, but it was really, you almost had to have an invitation to go there. But
Yeah.
once you were there, they had dining and
Right.
it's very
Oh.
exclusive, right?
This was not so much dining. It was a nightclub.
Right.
And
They had
well,
that.
yeah, you got drinks. And there was this guy, Rudy, who played, he was a big guy and he wore a tiara and he played the piano and he was wonderful. He controlled the audience completely. He had mirrors and he could, and if he saw you get up and move. He'd say, "Oh, where are you going?" You know,
Right. It was
like
fun.
that. Uh-huh. So it was a lot of fun.
Did
And
you go there often?
no, not too often. And I always went with
You almost had to have an invitation or something. You had to
well,
be
no,
membership or
no, I didn't have, I know what you're talking about.
right.
Um, but when I went to gay bars, it would be in the summer, and I would be in the uh, San Francisco Bay Area because I had friends in Berkeley and friends in Berkeley, Oakland, uh, some in San Francisco. But mostly I would stay with my friends in Berkeley. And so we would have forays. You know, we might go to Dick and Eddie's in Oakland, or we might go across the bay to a women's bar because remember the bars were separated. There were women's bars and
Bars, right.
men's bars, and it wasn't until AIDS that broke down with so many lesbians taking care of their gay friends, and so a lot of those barriers broke down. So that was nicer. But it used to I was always anxious when I went to these gay bars because
I didn't go that often, but they were rated pretty routinely.
sure, they were rated and I was
That
terrified.
made me anxious. I remember seeing these women, they were like 50 and they could dance really well together. And we were saying, whoa, look at them. I mean, they were
I
like
know.
packaged,
Yeah.
but it was a lot of anxiety with it.
Right. I was worried that we'd be rated, and also you as you went in, if somebody asked you your name, you never gave them your real name, and you never gave them your real occupation or where you were from. You made up something. Well, I'm a terrible liar, and I can't remember what I just said. What name did I say? And for
Right.
example, they would have, like in the women's bars, they would be playing pool. And so you'd sign up to get for the table to be emptied, and then you and so then they'd have your fake name up there, and they'd call your name, and I think, oh, is that the
My
one?
name? Right.
Is that my
I
name?
didn't have that experience.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
And then sometimes people would come up and they'd say, "Hi, I'm so and so, and you want a drink?" And I don't know. I just wasn't used to such kind of brazen.
Mm-hmm.
It was a brazen.
There was the safety in the assumption that you were in a lesbian bar.
Well, that's true.
Right. You didn't have to wonder.
Right. Yeah.
That was.
But I was always glad when we left, and thinking back, because I did have gay friends, men who were living in Hollywood, close to Hollywood Boulevard and so forth, and they had the most terrifying stories. I had, for example, I had two friends who were really not lovers; they were just friends. Mm-hmm. And it was early in the evening, say around 7 or 8 o'clock, and they were in a coffee shop on Hollywood Boulevard having coffee. And they were picked up in the paddy wagon and thrown into jail.
No, the gay men have always been harassed.
The
gay men have always been harassed.
Oh, and then I knew another guy that I taught with. This is when I was teaching in high school, and he wasn't there one day. He was a good friend of mine, and it turns out that he had gone to a drugstore in Hollywood. He had gotten a phone call from a friend of his, not a lover, just a friend, who said he had a terrible headache and would Jim go get him some aspirin or something, anything for his headache. And so Jim said, sure. So he went to a drugstore and got the aspirin. And when he came out, he was thrown into the paddy wagon.
Right. Just
because he was out on the sidewalk. And he said, but my friend I'm delivering some aspirin to my friend. Get in the car, and that's unheard of. And I don't think they could get away with that today. I don't
Well,
know.
I don't know. When I was counseling, I had two men's groups that I inherited right during the AIDS crisis. And all those men are dead
Yeah,
from AIDS.
yeah,
But knowing them, probably I knew them 2 years before that.
uh-huh.
And the harassment is huge,
Huge.
huge.
Yeah, it
And,
was terrible.
and they were indiscriminate also about where they had sex, where they had sexual contact. So the
Right,
police loved that, you know. But just like
right,
at women's bars, they love to come in the bars. They didn't take the women out, but they terrified everybody.
right,
Just that power over thing. So
right. Yeah.
it's
Well, some men
not,
were,
not a pleasant thing to think about.
well, a lot of men really were careless. You know, they would have sex right in a park, you
Right.
know, which is
Repeatedly.
stupid. Stupid. But anyway, thank goodness I'm not a man. So
Right.
that's
We'll
nicer.
be in this discussion. So what do you think's the most exciting thing that you've done in your life?
Oh, you know, I think that it just has to be Greta,
Okay,
you know.
agree with that. I feel that way too.
Yeah. I had I did have uh, an interesting 15 years or so living with a former entertainer. Her name was Norma Tanega, and uh, she was a singer and also a painter and so forth, and a very interesting, lively person. And through her, I met lots of Hollywood people, and that was exciting, and it was a whole new world.
It is, still is. Right?
Yeah, and through Greta, I have met just some super fine people, and and because of her, when she came out, and they had she got a call, you know, from Barwood Studios to produce her film,
Right.
Barbra Streisand.
Mhm.
And so, and then watching that whole production, and then all the premieres, and we went to there were, I think, 6 premieres or something.
Oh.
There was one that went premiere on television. But then before that, they had regular premieres in different cities. And when it premiered in San Francisco, Judy DeLugetz and Rachel Waba were there, and they were partners at that time in Olivia Records. And there was a time before that, I think, that when the Olivia Records had its 15th anniversary, it was held in Seattle, and we went to that. But
what's your favorite fairy tale?
Yeah, it's been distorted since I had so many fairy tales. My dad would read to us, and I can remember sitting on his lap and pulling his eyebrows, and I still have the books, and you know, Storyland and stuff like that. And then I remember in college working in the Scripps Library, and we would have these meetings, weekly meetings with the head librarian. And one time she would take a fairy tale, like, for example, Little Red Riding Hood, and give us
your favorite.
Well, the reason is I'm telling you this is because
evolve.
yeah, is because since childhood, then you grow up and then you hear about maybe there's a meaning behind
Mhm.
a fairy tale.
Right.
And then that begins to, so then you start thinking about fairy tales differently.
Right.
I mean, I love them because they teach a lesson in black and white, because that's how kids learn. They're perfectly horrible. Something
Right.
was bad, lost his head, or got his hands chopped off, or something terrible.
I didn't read that fairy tale.
Well, you just accept it as a fact, which I think is a scream. You don't care at all. You think, oh, okay. So, but Little Red Riding Hood is a Northern European story of the sunshine. Little Red Riding Hood was the sunshine,
Mhm.
and she went to see her grandma,
Mhm.
who was Winter. The wolf was Winter, and eventually the wolf kills Little Red Riding Hood, just like the Northern European winters take away summer, and then the cycle repeats. Next year, Little Red Riding Hood will come hoppity hoppity, and she'll come in and she'll see, oh, Grandma, what big ears you have. Oh, Grandma, what big teeth you have. They're better to eat you, I hear. And there's Winter, you know. Well, I love stuff like that.
A final question. If you knew that your life was ending soon, how would you like to be remembered?
Oh, I'd like to be remembered as a kind person. And I'd like to be remembered for community service and, yeah, uh, being helpful to some people if they
Mhm.
in need, that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah, because that's how I remember my favorite people.
Good. And thank you for,
It's been delightful.
it's been really, really, we've enjoyed it. Oh, yeah, right.
I'm happy. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you
So,
very
right.
much.